Frederick Selous. Frederick Courteney Selous, DSO/SLU/ December 31, 1851, January 4, 1917, was a British explorer, officer, professional hunter, and conservationist, famous for his exploits in Southeast Africa. His real-life adventures inspired Sir Henry Rider Haggard to create the fictional Allan Quatermain character. Selous was also a friend of Theodore Roosevelt, Cecil Rhodes, and Frederick Russell Burnham. He was preeminent within a select group of big game hunters that included Abel, Chapman and Arthur Henry Neumann. He was the older brother of ornithologist and writer Edmund Selous. Early life and exploration. Frederick Courteney Selous was born on December 31, 1851 at Regent's Park, London, as one of the 5 children of an aristocratic family, 3rd generation of part Huguenot heritage. His father, Frederick Selous, original spelling 1802 to 1892, was chairman of the London Stock Exchange, and his mother, Anne Holgate Sherborne, 1827 to 1913, was a published poet. One of his uncles was painter Henry Courteney Selous. Frederick had 3 sisters: Florence, born 1850, Annie Berryman, born 1853, and Sybil Jane, born 1862, and one brother, Edmund Selous, 1857 to 1934, who became a famous ornithologist. Frederick's love for the outdoors and wildlife was shared only by his brother. However, all of the family members were artistically inclined, as well as being successful in business. At 42, Selous settled in Worplesdon near Guildford in Surrey, and married 20-year-old Marie Catherine Gladys Maddie, born 1874, daughter of clergyman Canon Henry William Maddie. They had 3 sons: Frederick Hatherley Bruce Selous, 1898 to 1918, Harold Sherborne Selous, 1899 to 1954, and Bertrand Selous, who was born prematurely on July 6, 1915 and died 5 days later. Youth. From a young age, Selous was drawn by stories of explorers and their adventures. Furthermore, while in school, he started establishing personal collections of various bird eggs and butterflies and studying natural history. One account is related by his schoolmaster at Northamptonshire when Selous was 10 years old. On January 15, 1867, 17-year-old Selous was one of the survivors of the Regent's Park tragedy, well documented in the Times, when the ice covering the local lake broke with around 200 skaters on it, leaving 40 dead by drowning and freezing. He escaped by crawling on broken ice slabs to the shore. He was educated at Bruce Castle School, Tottenham, then at Rugby, and finally abroad in Germany and Austria. His parents hoped that he would become a doctor. However, his love for natural history led him to study the ways of wild animals in their native habitat. His imagination was strongly fueled by the literature of African exploration and hunting, Dr. David Livingstone, and William Charles Baldwin in particular. He eventually became as great a hero himself. African exploration. Going to South Africa when he was 19, he traveled from the Cape of Good Hope to Matabeleland, which he reached early in 1872, and where, according to his own account, he was granted permission by Lobengula, king of the Ndebele, to shoot game anywhere in his dominions. From then until 1890, Selous hunted and explored over the little-known regions north of the Transvaal and south of the Congo Basin, with a few brief intervals spent in England, shooting African elephants and collecting specimens of all kinds from museums and private collections. His travels added greatly to the knowledge of the country now known as Zimbabwe. He made valuable ethnological investigations, and throughout his wanderings, often among people who had never previously seen a white man, he maintained cordial relations with the chiefs and tribes, winning their confidence and esteem, notably so in the case of Lobengula. In 1890, Selous entered the service of the British South Africa Company, at the request of magnate Cecil Rhodes, acting as guide to the pioneer expedition to Mashonaland. Over 400 miles of road were constructed through a country of forest, mountain, and swamp, and in 2.5 months Selous took the column safely to its destination. He then went east to Manica, concluding arrangements which brought the country there under British control. Coming to England in December 1892, he was awarded the Founders Medal of the Royal Geographical Society in recognition of his extensive explorations and surveys, of which he gave a summary in a journal article entitled 20 Years in Zambezia. Military career. Rhodesia and First World War. Selous returned to Africa to take part in the First Matabele War of 1893 and was wounded during the advance on Bulawayo. It was during this advance that he first met fellow scout Frederick Russell Burnham, who had only just arrived in Africa and who continued on with a small scouting party to Bulawayo and observed the self-destruction of the Ndebele settlement as ordered by Labengula. Selous returned to England, married, and in 1896 he returned to Africa with his wife and settled on a landed property in Essex Vale, Matabeleland, overlooking the Nsma River. When the Second Matabele War broke out, Selous took a prominent part in the fighting which followed, serving as a leader in the Bulawayo field force, and published an account of the campaign entitled Sunshine and Storm in Rhodesia, 1896. It was during this time that he met and fought alongside Robert Baden-Powell, who was then a major and newly appointed to the British Army Headquarters staff in Matabeleland. In the First World War, at the age of 64, Selous rejoined the British Army and saw active service in the fighting against German colonial forces in the East Africa Campaign. On August 23, 1915, he was promoted to captain in the uniquely composed 25th Frontiersmen Battalion, Royal Fusiliers, and on September 26, 1916 was awarded the Distinguished Service Order, the citation reading, "Death and Legacy." On January 4, 1917, Selous was fighting in the Bush War on the banks of the Rufiji River against German colonial Schutztruppen, outnumbered 5-1. That morning, he was creeping forward in combat during a minor engagement when he raised his head and binoculars to locate the enemy. He was shot in the head by a German sniper and was killed instantly. Upon getting the news, American President Theodore Roosevelt, his close friend, wrote. He was buried under a tamarind tree near the place of his death, at Chokawali on the Rufiji River, in today's Selous Game Reserve, Tanzania, in a modest, flat stone grave with a simple bronze plaque reading, Captain F.C. Selous DSO, 25th Royal Fusiliers, killed in action April 1, 2017. Exactly a year later, on January 4, 1918, his son, Captain Frederick Hatherley Bruce MC, was killed. He was a pilot with Royal Flying Corps, in a flight over Menin Road, Belgium. Selous is a hunter, naturalist and conservationist. Hunting icon. Selous is remembered for his powerful ties, such as those with Theodore Roosevelt and Cecil Rhodes, as well as for his military achievements and the books that he left behind. But he is best remembered as one of the world's most revered hunters, as he pursued big game hunting in his southern African homelands and in wildernesses worldwide. Accounts of his youth are filled with stories of trespassing, poaching, and brawling, almost all within romanticized and humorous portrayals, but one in particular from 1870 stands out as more serious. When in Wiesbaden, Prussia, he knocked unconscious a Prussian game warden who tackled him while stealing buzzard eggs for his collection, and had to leave the country at once in order to avoid imprisonment. Then he moved to Austria, and in Salzburg he went big game hunting for the first time in the nearby Alps, where he shot 2 chamois. On September 4, 1871, at the age of 19, he left England with £400 in his pocket, determined to earn his living as a professional elephant hunter, and by the age of 25 he was across South Africa as one of the most successful ivory hunters of the day. Selous journeyed in pursuit of big game to Europe, Bavaria, Germany in 1870, Transylvania, then Hungary but now Romania in 1899, Mull Island, Scotland in 1894, Sardinia in 1902, Norway in 1907, Asia, Turkey, Persia, Caucasus in 1894-95, 1897, 1907, North America, Wyoming, Rocky Mountains in 1897 and 1898, Eastern Canada in 1900 to 1901, 1905, Alaska and Yukon in 1904, 1905, and the Dark Continent in a territory that extends from today's South Africa and Namibia all the way up into central Sudan, where he collected virtually every specimen of all medium and large African mammal species. On May 2, 1902, Selous was elected associate member of the Boone and Crockett Club, a wildlife conservation organization founded by Theodore Roosevelt and George Bird Grinnell in 1887. In 1909 to 1910, Selous accompanied American ex-President Roosevelt in his famous African safari. Contrary to popular belief, Selous did not lead Roosevelt's 1909 expedition to British East Africa, the Congo, and Egypt. While Selous was a member of this expedition from time to time and helped organize the safari's logistics, the excursion was in fact led by R.J. Cunningham. Roosevelt wrote of Selous. In 1909, Selous co-founded the Shikar Club, a big game hunters association, with two other British Army captains, Charles Edward Radcliffe and P.B. Vanderbilt, and regularly met at the Savoy Hotel in London. The association's president was the 5th Earl of Lonsdale. Another founding member included the artist, explorer, and Selous biographer John Guillaume Millet. He was a rifleman icon and a valued expert in firearms. Early in his hunting career, in the mid-1870s, Selous favored a 4-bore black powder muzzle-loader for killing elephant, a 13-pound short-barreled musket firing a quarter-pound bullet with as much as 20 drams, 550 grains, 35 grams, of black powder, one of the largest hunting caliber fabricated. Between 1874 and 1876 he killed 78 elephants with that gun, but eventually there was a double-loading incident together with other recoil problems from it, and he finally gave it up as too upsetting my nerve. He used a 10-bore muzzle-loader to hunt lions. After black powder muzzle-loader firearms became obsolete, he adopted a breech-loading 10-bore as shown in A Hunter's Wanderings in Africa, and by 1880 he was using his favorite, black powder breech-loading rifle, a .461 No. 1 Gibbs, Meatford, Farquharson single shot. Later he was approached by both Birmingham and London gunmakers in hopes of his endorsement, with Holland and Holland providing two Holland and Woodward Patton single-shot rifles, often confused in photos as Farquharsons, in the two calibers, a 303 and a 375 2.5 inches, and later a .425 Wesley Richards bolt-action rifle. There are quotes as to how Selous was not a crack shot, but a rather ordinary marksman, yet most agree that was just another personal statement of modesty from Selous himself. Regardless, he remains an iconic rifleman figure and, following in the tradition of others, the German gunmaker Blaser and the Italian gunmaker Perugini Visini chose to name their top-line safari rifles the Selous after him. Naturalist and conservationist. Many of the Selous trophies entered into museums and international taxidermy and natural history collections, notably that of the Natural History Museum in London. In their Selous collection they have 524 mammals from 3 continents, all shot by him, including 19 lions. In the last year of his life, while in combat in 1916, he was known to carry his butterfly net in the evening and collect specimens, for the same institution. Overall, more than 5,000 plants and animal specimens were donated by him to the Natural History section of the British Museum. This collection was held from 1881 in the new Natural History Museum in South Kensington, which became an independent institution in 1963. Here, posthumously in 1920, they unveiled a bronze bust of him in the main hall, where it stands to this day. He is mentioned widely in foremost taxidermist Roland Ward's catalogues for world's largest animal specimens hunted, where Selous is ranked in many trophy categories, including rhinoceros, elephant and many ungulates. He was awarded the Royal Geographical Society's Founders Medal in 1893 in recognition of 20 years exploration and surveys in South Africa. In 1896, British zoologist William Edward de Winton, 1856–1922, named a new African small carnivora, Parasinictus seleuci, or the Selous mongoose, in his honor. Also, a subspecies of the African Sidatunga antelope, Tragelaphus speakii seleuci, bears his name. Selous was one of the first hunter conservationists. In none of his expeditions was his object the taking of a big bag, but as a hunter naturalist and slayer of great game he ranked with the most famous in the world. In leading so many hunting expeditions, Selous noticed over time how the impact of European hunters was leading to a significant reduction in the amount of game available in Africa. In 1881 he returned to Britain for a while, saying, "The Selous Game Reserve in southeastern Tanzania is a hunting reserve named in his honor." Established in 1922, it covers an area of more than 17,000 square meters, 44 plus 800 square kilometer, along the rivers Kilombero, Ra, and Rufiji. The area first became a hunting reserve in 1905, although it is rarely visited by humans due to the significant presence of the tsetse fly. In 1982 it was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site due to the diversity of its wildlife and undisturbed nature. Selous as man and character. Portrait in literature. Frederick Courteney Selous' image remains a classic, romantic portrait of a proper Victorian period English gentleman of the colonies, one whose real-life adventures and exploits of almost epic proportions generated successful Lost World and steampunk genre fictional characters like Allan Quatermain, to a large extent an embodiment of the popular white hunter concept of the times, yet he remained a modest and stoic pillar in personality all throughout his life. As himself, he was featured in the Young Indiana Jones and Rhodes series. He was widely remembered in real tales of war, exploration and big game hunting as a balanced blend between gentleman officer and epic wild man. Appearance and character. He excelled in cricket, rugby, cycling, swimming and tennis. He loved the outdoors, developing a rugged and robust physique by trekking, packing, marching and hunting. He was also an accomplished rider, and he waged war and hunted much on horses. To the African locals, he was the best white runner, in the endurance aspect, similar as to native bushman's concept. While in England, all his life he played sports, he still did half-day 100-mile bicycle races when almost 60 years old. Millais, friend and biographer, wrote, "As sport he loved cricket most, and played regularly for his club at Worplesdon, taking part in all their matches until 1915. Big Game Hunters vs. Worplesdon was always a great and solemn occasion." Television accounts. Gallery of additional images. Chronology of works. By Frederick Courteney Selous. Selous also wrote the foreword to Africa's most popular man-eater story, The Man-Eaters of Tsavo and Other East African Adventures by Lieutenant Colonel J. H. Patterson, DSO, with the foreword by Frederick Courteney Selous, London, 1907. Besides the works mentioned, Selous made numerous contributions to the Geographical Journal, The Field, and other journals. Geographical Journal, The Field, and other journals. Geographical Journal, The Field.